Hello, 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 Rise and Thrivers. Welcome to our 57th episode. Here we are as we take a moment this Monday, Memorial Day, as we just take this time to honor everyone who has served this country and has put their life for us on this country. So we're just going to ask to take a few seconds of silence in memory of everyone. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining Raquel and I today as we are completing this May, as we have finishing up our Random Acts of Kindness Challenge. It still goes through the end of May 31st. And get ready for the following Monday in June, where we spin that wheel for that special person who has been on that challenge with us, who will be a special guest with us, their 15 minutes of fame. And so with that, we are excited also as we continue this month on mental health awareness. And I'm excited to bring Raquel on to share and get right into our guests. So welcome, sis. Nice to see you.
Hey, I feel like I'm lopsided for some reason. I feel like I'm like this, but I don't know. Anyway, hello. Super excited to be here with you. And what a great way to wrap up this month of May on mental health awareness. It's a really, really important topic, and we are super excited to have our guest here. Our guest, Melanece, is the program coordinator at NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. She has been in the field of social work for over 20 years, specializing in mental health and wellness. Currently at NAMI New Jersey, she, as I said, is the program coordinator of NAMI's New Jersey AACT-NOW Multicultural program and is also co-facilitator for the AACT-NOW Family Support Group. She's a member of NAMI New Jersey's Act Now Advisory, which is NAMI New Jersey's initiative to spread awareness, education, and information to New Jersey's African American population about mental illness. Melanece has also facilitated one of NAMI New Jersey's signature programs called Family to Family, which helps loved ones understand and receive education on mental illness. While at NAMI, she has received 2013 Certificate of Appreciation for outstanding dedication and contribution to NAMI. We want to bring her on right now because there's so many things this young lady has done, and the most important one is coming on Rise and Thrive Together. So welcome, Melanece. We absolutely are so glad that you're here with us. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm
And
doing
let me tell
well.
you,
How are you? Thank you for having me. I'm so
we're
excited.
doing very well. And you see how important it is for her to get on and spread and educate us on mental illness and bringing awareness. She's sitting in her vehicle. This is commitment and dedication to educating us. So glad that you are here with us. Now, what's interesting is you and Regina are both social workers,
Oh, wow.
right?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm the
Yes.
outsider. I'm the psych person, but all the same.
You stab it.
Now, what I find interesting is, and I just want to jump right on in because that's how I do. I find it so important about the education or educating African Americans on mental illness.
Mhm.
I know why it's important for me, but why is it so important for this organization and you to educate, to focus in and target African Americans?
Yeah, so what happened with NAMI New Jersey is that they decided to make it for multicultural programs. We were the last ones to African Americans. And basically we realized that a lot of times when we go into like our support groups, we want to see people that look like us, that's been through lived experience like us. So then we decided that maybe we should try to tailor it towards African Americans in the state. And so basically, what we also do is we do outreaches to different organizations, agencies, and put it from a perspective of African Americans. And so our support groups are led by African-American facilitators, usually who have someone with a lived experience, or if there is someone that has a family member with lived experience. So that's basically how we get the education out. And we just try to just get across the board, like agencies, churches, schools, and everything, just to get that information out. And it just kind of helps the fight the stigma when you're a little bit more educated, and to know that other people are going through things like you are. So that's how we got started.
Wow. Now you say stigma. What's the stigma on mental illness?
A lot of times people, it starts as little as they don't want to talk about it. They know something's going on. They might have a few weeks where they're not feeling well, like kind of down, or if they're having like, being anxious about certain things. So it starts little like that, and people don't want to reach out and get the help. And then a lot of times it goes a little bit further. Well, they know something's wrong. Now they have to reach out to maybe a therapist or a social worker or something. And they kind of don't even want to do that. So we kind of just pull it back and say, okay, maybe not necessarily, it might be something going on that you think that needs help, but just come on in and talk to us for a little bit and just see what it is. And it could be, something dealing with like caregiving for someone who has a lived experience. And I think that's how we start that, to get that information out, to fight that stigma, to make it a little bit more relatable, where people actually want to go out and get help, as opposed to just kind of keeping everything, inside the house. Like, how we were raised sometimes: what stays in this house stays in the house. Don't say anything. We're fine. We look good. We're doing well. And that's where we're trying to say, okay, maybe you might look good, but there is something going on. Let's talk about it. So I think that's where we start with breaking the stigma, basically.
Wow.
Melanece, thank you for that. Here's something that I learned going back into social work school, and I'm really curious about what your thoughts are on this. When I was taking all the classes and all the courses, and then starting to do my internships. And one of my first internships was working, with people who were diagnosed with some diagnosis in, mental illness. Many people had shared with me, and it was also shared, in class studies, that, why people don't go get help is because we're tracked, right? Like it was like, oh, here I am at work, right? Because one of the programs at work provide that. And I don't want people to know, because other people, like you said, the stigma, whatever that label is, and, and culturally, like you said, I don't care what color and what religion, I've heard it everywhere. We grew up, I'm going to speak personally for that crazy aunt, that crazy uncle, there was something off about them. And as a child, your parents would protect you, right?
Yep.
To find out later on in life, that person, back then, they didn't even have the correct diagnosis, right? So we'd be labeling them. And so many times, even till this day, I was just telling Raquel before I, came on, that I was with somebody on phone, like being able to be with them because they're dealing with a crisis in their life. And as a friend, I'm able to listen, but being able to provide some support and being able to say, hey, here's some resources, here is, but I don't want to be tracked. And so, like, because insurance wise, right? Insurance wise. And then what happens if because my boss might know, or this might know. So I'm just curious, is that still, it's been a long time. I'm here now, kind of shifting 13 years later, my career, but still super important. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that, especially being in NAMI, and is that still really there?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes both ways. Like, it still kind of has that kind of underlying thing, but I think now we can kind of guise it as, oh, it's a sick day today, as opposed to saying that we've been in the hospital for a long time dealing with something. So I think the language is starting to change a little bit, and we're starting to be a little bit more intentional on how we think about things. So when somebody says, I have a sick day, now people are saying, you know what, I need to take a mental health day. And it's starting to become a little bit more accepted. So we're getting there. But I think what happens too is we're starting to learn the language a little bit more, and to be able to articulate what we're feeling. And I think that's how we kind of get over that hump, to not necessarily kind of keep everything down. And a lot of times now, I think people are still going back to that, word of mouth type of thing. Like, oh, I have a good therapist. Oh, you do? Okay. Can you give me your number? And people start to spread it that way now. So we're having that open dialogue, but we'll still kind of go back to our old ways sometimes that we don't want to say anything, but then people are taking that initiative to say, hey, is everything okay? And people start asking, and then that's how we get people to kind of get that help, basically. So I think we're on our way, but we're still in that kind of like, we don't want to say too much, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So yeah.
Do you think it's just the seasoned people that don't want to talk about it? Because what I'm finding is, especially in sports, it's coming out so much more with athletes saying, hey, I have a mental illness, I suffer with, or I live with depression or anxiety. And the kids, it's a thing with the kids now. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to see my therapist later, so we can't meet up. And they're so open about it. So, I mean, it seems to be, like you said, it's on the rise where people are acknowledging and claiming, but it's just in the last couple of years, it's just been so excessive. I mean, it's a great thing where people are not embarrassed, not ashamed. They don't care how much money they make. They are telling their story and sharing with the world because they realize and recognize the importance of sharing this information. I want to know your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I think what it is now when we're in school, like the schools now have like, I guess they call them like zones of regulation. So it's like a red light, caution light, it's green or blue to kind of see where they are on the continuum of how their feelings are. So they're starting to teach it in schools now. And I know that there's some programs that NAMI has that goes out into the schools to teach like the educators about things, to teach, the students about things. So we're starting young, and I think that's how we start getting that education out, to be able to give people that the edge, almost like to say, okay, I learned about this when I was in middle school. Okay, now we're in high school and we're talking about something a little bit more complex, but we're still talking about mental health. So we're starting to get there, as I was saying before, to kind of just say, okay, we have the language now. Okay, we can identify what we're feeling, and then we're trying to identify if these feelings are just normal, or is it something that we might need something a little bit more help for, or is it something that's chronically, affecting our lives and stuff like that. So, it's kind of getting there too. So, yeah.
You mentioned some lights. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis.
No, bring the lights first. Bring the lights.
You said red light, green light, and I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, because that was a game we used to play as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But you said red light, yellow light, green light, and blue light. Can you explain to our audience what those lights signify?
I think with the red light, it's something that's really serious that needs to be addressed. The yellow light is, I'm kind of feeling something, if it keeps going like this, then we got to really do something about it. The green light is, I'm doing okay. Everything seems to be okay. I'm on the lookout for things that are getting good. And then the blue light is like, okay, I'm kind of in like a good area kind of thing. So I think that's kind of where that is with that. So they kind of teach kids with that at school. They kind of just get them in tunes with their feelings and stuff. So, yeah.
My daughter's in the other room. She's almost 8. And so I will ask her about that when we're done. I'd grab her in here, but then she'd take up the whole time. And what I do love, since she's been in VPK all the way through, kindergarten, she was in preschool, VPK, kindergarten. Now she's in first. She's got 3 more days, and then she's in second. They still are using the feelings chart with them.
Yeah.
And so that feelings chart and now, I mean, I knew emotions, but wow, like even the books she took, I was like 52, emotions, even when you look at her emojis, right? There was always like, happy, sad, frustrated, mad, anxious. Now contemplative. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
There's so many. It's amazing. When she brought the first chart home, there was like 16, which was like, I remember as a kid, like 5 or 6. So it's really beautiful, because that, I think, is something that is educating today more than growing up when we grew up, that it's much more complex. Raquel, you, like you say, you're not a social worker, but hello, doctorate, licensed mental health counselor there. Hello.
Absolutely.
What are we talking about here, girl? What are you talking about? We've all learned like how complex, right? We want to say, oh, depression, oh, anxiety, oh, bipolar 1. Oh, there's so many layers, right? Like there's I remember my, psychopathology teacher. He's like, see it as an onion. Like every time you're peeling off the top and you're peeling and you're peeling and you're peeling, there's just and they all are on top of each other. So yeah, that I love the whole, I'm excited about the zones to share that. The other piece that comes for me, and this is like where real talk comes in, because I was excited to have you on here. It's very dear to my heart, frustrating though. That's the word I'm going to use inside of our emotions. With regards to funding, right? Mental health is like as important as air breathing.
Yes.
Like we don't see the air, but we're breathing it.
Yes.
Our heart is here beating. And the mental health for human beings is the most important. And I'm so still, like, I love that you're here and I'm so appreciative. And I can feel my blood boil. Like when we're like, we're almost there. We're almost like the new flip language of the day.
Yeah.
What more is it going to take? How many more, we're talking about the unseen people. But we have the actors, right? Like the actors and like, I can't think of his name, and sis, she'll help me. The amazing, dancer and DJ, right? Who committed suicide. Twitch, thank you. Like what else more, right? The icon of all icons that took me down a rabbit hole when I saw it that day and spent hours looking at every single Instagram post, watching, right? One after the other, 2 days prior, 3 days prior, right? So I get it, like to educate, but like, tell me really, like, how are you feeling, NAMI? Like, what can we as a society, and especially as people who are so passionate about educating, empowering, and equipping people, like, what is there more to do? Because like, I just don't understand. I see this as a crisis. Like it's a crisis. And then like when we say, oh, it's getting, we're getting better about it. It's just mind blowing. So I just was wondering what your thoughts is as a professional in one of the top organizations that are committed to, educating and all of that and making a difference for people.
Yeah. So I think what it is that, we started talking about like starting that conversation with one another. And then, we kind of take it to that next level of, okay, now we're going to get help. Now we're going to get the help that we already have and then try to pass it along. So that would be kind of like getting the funding from like Congress, from like the state Senate and stuff like that. So basically, NAMI has a program called NAMI Smarts to basically tell you how to tell your story. What have you been through? What have your loved ones been through? What were the barriers that you came up across? And they basically prompt you how to get through your story to be able to tell like your senator, to be able to tell your representative what exactly you went through and where are the holes, where are we falling short, where are we, might need a little bit of help, what are we doing good. So we basically, like we said, go from that grassroots to say, okay, we're going to do our support groups. We're going to do this. Okay, we're going to reach out to the schools. We're going to go to the churches. We're going to be able to go out and do like stuff for agencies, all these type of like fairs and stuff like that. And then it's like, okay, let's take it to the next level. Let's start thinking about funding. How can we talk to our Congress people about this? So that's where we're going. We're going from all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. So I think that's where we're going. And we still, just try to just give people that language. And I think that's what starts everything. It starts the conversation. So that's where we are.
What is the name of that program again?
NAMI Smarts.
NAMI Smarts. And so is NAMI like in every single state?
I'm trying to remember if it is in like 48 or 49, but it is in pretty much a whole bunch of states. And how it's set up is that there might be like a, like a NAMI, like Burlington County or something, or it might be a NAMI Bucks County or something. So they have it in every state, but then in every state they have a breakdown of different counties different municipalities and stuff like that. But the thing about New Jersey, we're the only ones that have like the 4 multicultural programs, so we're a little different with that. So yeah, we're trying to see if we can get it across the board, but yeah, so we're a little bit ahead the curve, I think.
Now, I want to take it way back to the beginning. In case someone is listening and they think they have an idea of what mental illness is and what that means, can you just please explain what mental illness is?
Okay, mental illness, usually it goes from something that is basically hindering your daily functioning. So if you're sad, you're having the feeling of sadness, but if you're depressed, it's basically hindering, and it's a chronic kind of thing. So that's where we're kind of looking at it, is that it's something that's like like just hindering your daily functioning, to make it like in the simplest forms of it. And then that could be anywhere from like having depression, having bipolar, having schizophrenia, having like OCD, something that is hindering you from living the life that you need to live. So that's basically just for the breakdown of it, basically. Yeah.
Okay. What about, and just to throw a cog here, what if I just had a loss in my family, or I lost my job, or I lost my marriage, and I got a divorce is like on the forefront? Could that loss and that feeling of, like you said, sadness or loss, I feel a loss, a void, there's something missing in me, could that be considered mental illness?
Not all the way. It's something that is a mental health issue. If you notice the difference, basically with that is that it's a kind of like a temporary type of thing. So
Mm.
they'll still, have groups, and something definitely you need to talk about your counselor, but it's like, guess the residuals from it. So if you have lost someone and then you're depressed over it and you just can't get over that depression, that's where we start coming into like the chronic mental health or something like that. But that is something that definitely you could get addressed by your therapist, by your counselor, clinician, anybody, because that is something that can become like a serious mental health issue, basically. So yes, definitely you want to, definitely get information and help, definitely when you have a loss, because
I'm
it can
hearing
become
that that hindrance is a great word, right? Because I'm pulling out of when you're in the beginning as someone who's lost family members, and there's when you're at first like sad, but then when I'm not able to wake up and I'm not going to my job, and I'm choosing not to go to my job, not taking a shower day 1, day 2, day 3. And I don't, and you might know this better than I do, but I remember there's something like a certain amount of like, like if when this feeling is there and it is stopping you from doing your daily, everyday activities that seem to be like regular, right? Getting up and eating and going to work or school or whatever that is. And then it's 7 or whatever that was, or
2 weeks.
14, 2 weeks, right? I was going to say 7 to 14 days, right? And now I'm not going to work. I'm not going to school. I'm staying in my room. I'm not changing my clothes, right? So we went from like the beginning of something which, we all, I don't think there's a human being on this planet that has not felt sadness, that has not felt some grief, that has not felt some anger. But like you said, where it hinders, where it stops you from the everyday daily activities in your lifestyle before that incident, right? If you were like getting up, going to school, going and so forth.
Yep.
So I really appreciate that. Just had to say that out loud, just in case, we know people are listening, so that we give them something to sort of think about, right? Like, let me, I know I feel sad. I know I feel depressed, because we all go through those things.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it's good to try to surround yourself with people that know you, to have that good support system, to be able to just check in on you sometimes. And that's when we have to be sometimes that person to check on people, whether it be like our parents, our grandparents. We notice that if our kids are going, check on them. So it's good to basically build up that support system, because after a while, sometimes we might not even notice it in ourselves, but somebody else might be able to just give that hand out to say, hey, I noticed this is going on. Is everything okay? You could talk to me about it. If you don't want to talk about it, you know what? Here's somebody else you might want to be able to talk to. Just surround yourself with those type of people to be able to kind of know, your routine, to be able to kind of support you just in case if something does happen, if you need that support.
So now I've got a question. We've got the support around us, but we as the affected person, we don't take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
What is the family supposed to do? Because sometimes families they come hard. They like, we want to help you. We're going to help you whether you want it or not. And they go hard. What if I, as that person, don't want that?
That's a tough question. When we deal with people in our support group that have family members like that, we just say sometimes, we just you gotta keep coming at them, or it's sometimes you have to back away if it's starting to affect you as yourself. So it's kind of tough to kind of know exactly which way to go sometimes. But I guess the best way to look at it is that if you're overly consumed with it, like it's starting to affect your daily day to day, if you're that's the only thing that you could think about, you have to sometimes pull away. Sometimes it's not ideally something that we think about, like, okay, I'm just going to stop reaching out to my relative. But sometimes it happens that we're not able to give that support, because sometimes we have to worry about our own mental health sometimes. And unfortunately, you can always subtly say, okay, I'm giving you this information. If you choose to take it, here it is. And then whenever you're ready to talk again, I'll be here. But for right now, I'm creating this boundary right now to kind of back away for a little bit. So, it's not always easy to know what to do, but I always go with just protecting yourself and creating the boundaries and just making sure you're doing the self-care for yourself. So that's where we are with that.
I really appreciate you saying we can't always give you what you would think is a right answer. There are times where you, as the caregiver for someone, or the friend, the support system, that you have to gauge, is this me helping, impacting my life and causing me stress that I can't work through, right? Because there's some stress that we can work through. Making a phone call doesn't take anything. And are we saying you have to take the abuse from the person that's being affected? Meaning I'm the person that's living with and feeling sad, and not sad, but depressed. And you're coming saying, hey, how are you? I'm just checking in. And I'm abusing you verbally. We're not saying you have to deal with that. That's a choice you have to make. We are not saying that. But it is about monitoring yourself and, like you said, your own self-care. And for the person who's affected by this mental illness, we want you, all three of us, and people out there who are your support system, want you to get the help that you deserve. You deserve to get help with this. So real quick, tell us how, and not just for New Jersey, how can people, anyone on this call listening to this message tonight, and they are feeling anything, and it doesn't have to be depression. We use depression because that is the first thing that comes up, but there's so many other mental illnesses that matter. There's eating disorders, bipolar disorder, generalized anxiety disorder. There are a whole plethora of them. But if you are feeling anything that's out of sorts, and like Melanece said, it's totally impacting your normal everyday functioning, how can they reach out? How can they get assistance?
I would basically just say, like, a lot of times, like, that word of mouth. Like, if somebody has a good therapist, okay, we go with that. There's, like we said, there's NAMI everywhere. So you go on the national website and they'll be able to drop box it and say, okay, NAMI in New Jersey. And then they'll drop box all the different locations. And I mean, some other people reaching out, like kids in their school, they could go to their guidance counselor. When we're in our churches, we go to our pastor. So find that person that is the person that knows what's going on to be able to help. So that's how we get started. So, word of mouth, asking around, a trusted friend that we know that would have our back if we just asked for things like that. So it goes from, you know, all the way to the schools, to the churches, everywhere. So that's where we could kind of get started. Even if you're just talking to your relative or something like that, that's that conversation that gets started too. If they can help you to say, hey, can you make this phone call for me? I'm just not feeling up to it. And that could be what could be started too. So I think that's where we have to go a lot of times, and to just basically, and I know Google search it sometimes, that helps to say, okay, I have these symptoms, what is it? And then they can go from there. So that's where we are.
So if you
Wow.
could give our audience one quick takeaway about mental illness, what would it be?
Wow, that's a good question. Wow. I would say definitely don't be afraid to just ask the right questions. To ask, you know, I'm not feeling well, where do I go? Basically not to have that you know, that fear that you're not going to be able to get help, or somebody's going to judge you. You don't know unless you ask, basically. And I always say to my kids a lot of times, you know, if you don't ask the question, you don't know the answer, or, you know, the answer is always going to be no. So just get that conversation started, and just understand, just like going to the doctors every year to get that physical checkup, might make sense to start getting that mental health checkup every year or something. So I think that's what the takeaway is. And I just say, don't be afraid just to get that help. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just our physical health, but it's going on in our mental. So I think it's just get that information out and just ask. I think that's what it is.
Oh, I love that. For anybody who is connected out there, physical every year, right? We do that. Most of us do that. So let's go, people who's ready for the mental health challenge. Ooh, mental health minimum yearly challenge. I love that. Thank you, Melanese. It has been an honor and a pleasure for you to be here today and really support us in this conversation.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
We are
Definitely.
so grateful to wrap up Mental Health Awareness Month with a mental health professional. So thank you, really and truly. And guys, remember, when I say this, our tagline at the end, it is not because I wanted something cute and catchy. It's because this is what it really is. And we always want you to remember, together we can rise and thrive. Till next time.